beginning. Tonight, we'll investigate how this happened, why it happened. We'll take a close look at Smollett's defenders who dismissed doubts about this story, doubts that any reasonable person would have had from day one, as conspiracy theories. Piers Morgan will join us, too. But first, a rundown of everything that's happened today in Chicago, and for that, we are joined by Fox's Trace Gallagher. Trace?
And Tucker, the media presence was immense for the Jussie Smollett bond hearing, but in the end, the courtroom drama could not hold a candle to what happened outside. In fact, while Smollett was settling up his $100,000 bond, a prosecutor from the Cook County State Attorney's Office spent 20-plus minutes detailing the entire case, including statements from the brothers who claim Smollett staged the whole thing. Watch.
Smollett stated that he wanted them to appear to attack him on the evening of January 28, 2019, near his apartment building in Streeterville. Defendant Smollett also stated he wanted the brothers to catch his attention by calling him an Empire F, Empire N.
Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson, who was deferential to Smollett's initial claim, also lashed out today, saying he was offended by the actor's actions. Watch.
How can an individual who's been embraced by the city of Chicago turn around and slap everyone in this city in the face by making these false claims?
And as Chicago Tribune columnist John Cass points out, Chicago police solve about 17% of the city's thousands of homicides. Yet, even with the department's thin resources, 24 investigators were assigned to the Smollett case. And today, Superintendent Johnson cited that. Watch.
As I look out into the crowd, I just wish that the families of gun violence in this city got this much attention, because that's who really deserves the amount of attention that we're giving to this particular incident.
Johnson went on to say that he realizes the city of Chicago has a racial divide and that it's hard for the city and country to come together. He also wonders how this might impact future cases. Listen.
My concern is that hate crimes will now publicly be met with a level of skepticism that previously didn't happen.
And we should note Smollett could also face federal charges for allegedly sending himself a phony threat letter containing white powder, which turned out to be Tylenol. His next court appearance, March 14th. Tucker.
Trace Gallagher, thanks for that. Well, there is at least one big unanswered question in the case of Jussie Smollett tonight. Why did this happen? Why would a popular actor on a network TV show, someone who's rich and successful and famous, pay people to assault him and risk going to jail in the process? Well, at a press conference in Chicago today, the police superintendent wondered the same thing.
I'm left hanging my head and asking why. Why would anyone, especially an African-American man, use the symbolism of a noose to make false accusations? How could someone look at the hatred and suffering associated with that symbol and see an opportunity to manipulate that symbol to further his own public profile?
Well, that's a fair question. What Smollett did was not simply illegal and weird. It was terrible for the country. So why did he do it? Well, the short answer appears to be he wanted a raise at work, and he thought this would get him that. The broader answer, and the one that we should all think about, meditate on, is that Smollett was simply responding to the incentives that American society has created for him. Smollett pretended to be a victim because we reward victims. We've decided that it's more heroic to suffer than it is to achieve. That's the message of our culture, our politics, our workplaces. Jussie Smollett was simply doing his best to get ahead according to the rules that others made. And in fact, had his hoax succeeded, there is no doubt Smollett would have been richly rewarded for it. He'd probably get a significant bump in pay and an extended segment on Colbert. He would have been a hero. So Jussie Smollett was not crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing. Faking a hate crime was an entrepreneurial move. In modern America, victimhood is power. That's why so many powerful people claim it. It's why Elizabeth Warren pretended to be an American Indian. It's why at every low point during the entire span of his political career, Barack Obama invoked bias. It's why so many politicians do the same today. I have suffered. You cannot criticize me. The academic left has constructed an entire theology around the holiness of victimhood. It's called intersectionality. It comes with an elaborate rating system in which every group in America is assessed according to how much it has suffered. The more your group says it has been discriminated against, the more moral authority you receive. It's a pretty good deal for a lot of people, and they have no interest in changing it. And that explains why so many on the left initially jumped to Jussie Smollett's defense. They weren't simply defending him, they were defending identity politics. We could give you any number of examples of this, but we'll skip ahead to the most nauseating one of all. Watch anchor Robin Roberts of ABC, quote, News, beam with joy after Smollett finishes the most dishonest performance of his life, and then tell him his lies are beautiful.
I still want to believe, with everything that has happened, that there's something called justice. Because if I stop believing that, then what's it all for? Thank you, Jussie.
Thank you, Jussie. Well, before he claimed that white supremacists beat him up on the street, most people had never heard of Jussie Smollett. And after he became a victim, everybody wanted to be his friend. Here's Don Lemon over on CNN bragging about how he texts his new pal Jussie every single day. He's got Jussie's cell number. That's how close they are. Really tight.
My concern is for him.
Right, right.
And for his well-being. Every day, I say, I know you think I'm annoying. I can show you a text. I know you think I'm annoying, but I just want to know that you're doing,
okay.
that you're okay.
Yeah.
If you need somebody, you can talk to me, because there's not a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Sometimes he responds, sometimes he doesn't. He responds and says, you are not annoying.
You can talk to me, Don Lemon says, because there aren't a lot of us out there. Well, here's the translation. Us means people who've been oppressed in the ways that Jussie Smollett has been oppressed. Lemon is letting you know that he's in that group too. Yes, he's a highly paid news anchor with his own TV show, and yet, like Jussie Smollett, Don Lemon is a holy victim. So there's a mad scramble over who's the victim here. Who is the victim? Well, there is one. What Smollett did was not a victimless crime. There's no such thing as that. An entire group of people did get slandered by this hoax. Regular people from outside the coastal cities. People with the wrong political beliefs and the wrong skin color. Smollett and his many defenders savagely attacked these people and are not apologizing for doing it. Instead, they're telling you, you hear this everywhere, that the real losers here are the authentic victims of hate crimes who won't be believed the next time. Okay, that's fine. But what about the innocent Americans they just poured venom on for 2 weeks because it matched some bigoted stereotype they had about middle America? What about them? There's no mention of them. Don Lemon would very much like to keep up those attacks on those people. Attacking them allows him to feel oppressed. That is why when Smollett was finally caught, Lemon reacted in a very puzzling way. He didn't seem especially concerned that his buddy had lied to further divide the country to hurt America, which he did. No, that wasn't the real problem. The real problem, according to Don Lemon, is that Smollett's arrest might discredit the cult of victimhood.
This is playing out every single moment in cable news. Sean Hannity's going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second. Tucker Carlson is going to eat Jussie Smollett's lunch every single second.
Yeah, because when you tell the truth about a hate hoax, you're the real hater. What's the cost of this attitude so floridly on display to our society? What does it do to us? Well, think of it this way. What would happen to your kids if you woke them up every morning by telling them that they were victims? No matter how hard they worked, people would always hate them just for who they are. What if you did that? Would that be good parenting? Would it make your kids stronger, happier, more successful? No, it wouldn't. And good parents would never do that. Good parents tell their kids to take responsibility for their lives, not to blame others, to work as hard as they can to overcome obstacles. That's what good parents of all races and all backgrounds tell their kids. And if you don't believe it, just ask 10 well-adjusted, accomplished people if their parents allowed them to feel like victims. Again, it doesn't matter where they're from or what they look like. Ask them, did your parents tell you you're a victim? And not one of them will say yes. And yet we tell our citizens just the opposite. And you see the effects very clearly. In the workplace, for example. In the years after the 2008 recession, there was an enormous surge of claims of workplace bias of all kinds. There is still no evidence that bigotry itself increased at all during those years. And yet when people felt threatened by a teetering economy, they knew that claiming victimhood status would give them an advantage. Can you blame them? No, you really can't. Not really. They didn't write the rules of our society. They're just following the rules that people like Don Lemon wrote, but at great cost. Piers Morgan is editor-at-large of DailyMail.com. and a keen observer of everything that happens in the world. He joins us today. So, Piers, as a guy who's been in the news business for a long time, you must be wondering, why were the reporters following this the most credulous of all? Why didn't they smell a rat?
Well, it was the perfect storm, wasn't it, Tucker? This is where the victimhood culture that you so brilliantly articulated there meets Trump derangement syndrome, this disease which has afflicted so many, particularly liberal celebrities. And I think in Jussie Smollett, you had greed as a motivation, but you also had, he wanted to be a celebrity victim, as you said. He wanted people to feel sorry for him, to like him, to retweet him. But also he wanted to use the prism of his hatred for Donald Trump and all things Trump as the bedrock for this. They had to be two white Trump supporters in Making America Great caps who attacked him, because he knew that that would be the perfect vehicle to turn him into American hero. That actually, if he was attacked by Trump supporters who lynched him, or tried to lynch him with a noose and really, you know, committed one of the worst hate crimes imaginable, then he, Jussie Smollett, would become a hero. And he would be a heroic victim. And in fact, he went further. In the Robin Roberts interview, he said that he fought back against these two guys. Well, we've now seen the size of them. These are two very big men. And our hero, Jussie, fought back. So he's a victim, but a hero who also fought back. And I look at this whole story. I tweet every day, all day. And I write columns 2-3 times a week. I didn't say a word about this, Tucker, from the moment this story broke.
I didn't know.
Something about this stank from the moment it happened. And I just stayed very quiet. I waited and I watched and I waited and I watched. And all the time, more and more stuff came out, from him not releasing his phone to then releasing redacted records to so on and so on. And slowly but surely, the real story built up. But this guy had completely invented the whole attack. He'd staged it. He'd roped in his friends to do this. And I'm sorry, but I've already seen on social media people starting to feel sorry for this guy. You know, we should cut him some slack. He's got mental health issues. That's always the first refuse of excuse for this kind of behavior. He's not mentally ill. He's greedy, and he's somebody who was craving attention. And a lot of the media, as I think is very apparent from this story, a lot of the mainstream media in America have gone so full-on anti-Trump that they were prepared to suspend all journalistic integrity and credibility in the way they reported this story by just believing every word this guy said. And they did it, Tucker, because we're now in a culture where my truth is perceived to be the truth. And it's not. Time and again now we see people where their truth, their idea of a truth, is a complete lie. Jussie Smollett claimed to have been effectively lynched. Everybody followed up with this. All the top Democrats were tweeting, Kamala Harris to Cory Booker. It was a lynching. You know, they were trying to lynch this guy. But it wasn't. The only thing that was lynched was the truth.
That's right. And the press abetted it, the channel that you and I once worked at, among them. Piers Morgan, such a smart summation, as always. It's great to see you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
We've got more in this story now. We'll be joined later in the show by Dan Bongino and Chadwick Moore for even more on why this happened, what it means, and what happens next. That's in just a bit. We live in the age of the woke billionaire. Bet you never thought you'd live to see that. We're seeing it. Why are the biggest winners in our economic system endorsing socialism for America? There's a reason for that, and we'll tell you what it is after the break. Given it a name yet, so how about the year of the woke billionaire? Sit back and watch as the Democratic presidential candidates simultaneously jockey to establish the most left-wing possible credentials, and at the very same time feverishly suck up to the super rich to fund their campaigns. We've seen some of this before. Tom Steyer and George Soros, those are the obvious examples, but there are many, many, many more. On Saturday, just this past Saturday, coming Saturday rather, Senator Cory Booker is attending a Silicon Valley fundraiser. It's hosted by Gary and Laura Lauder. They're heirs to the $14 billion Estee Lauder fortune. Kamala Harris just had a fundraiser in Beverly Hills that was attended by an army of wealthy studio execs. Kirsten Gillibrand didn't even start her campaign for president before asking the permission of Wall Street. So what's the message? Rich people are highly progressive now. And you can see why. They love mass immigration. It brings them servants. They support federally mandated snobbery masquerading as environmentalism. Abortion is essentially a sacrament to them, especially when practiced in poor neighborhoods. But here's the confusing part. These are, by definition, affluent people, and yet increasingly, confiscatory tax rates are a rallying cry for the Democratic Party. So why are billionaires so eager to back candidates who want to seize their assets to fund new entitlements? This is confusing. Here's one reason. Billionaires understand that they will never have to pay those taxes. Why? Because the top federal income tax rate stops at about $500 grand. So what's the difference between someone making $500,000 a year and someone making $50 million a year? The answer? The richer one can much more easily evade paying full freight, and they do. This group makes far more of their money on capital gains, which are taxed at only half the rate of your salary, and some of it's not even taxed at all. Under the 2017 tax law, investments in federally designated opportunity zones evade capital gains taxes entirely. One such opportunity zone, by the way, is right by the Army-Navy Country Club in Arlington, Virginia, one of America's richest zip codes. But even on their official tax returns, even on income, the richest Americans are paying less. According to the IRS, the top 1% of Americans pay about 27% of their income in taxes. But the top 10th of 1%, that's people who make $35 million a year, pay less than 26%. And the top 1,000th of a percent, the absolute richest, pay less than 24%. In other words, past a certain point, the richer you are, the less you pay. That's why billionaires back socialism. It doesn't cost them much. Dana Perino hosts the Daily Briefing with Dana Perino. She's also coming on later in the show on Final Exam with Greg Gutfeld. But for now, Dana, you're going to get him. I'm rooting for you, as you know.
Thank you.
Don't tell him. There is this really interesting dynamic where the party, the Democratic Party, is becoming openly socialist in some cases, but certainly embracing economic populism, but it's still funded by the richest segment of our society. How does that work?
It is pretty interesting. And actually, to have Bernie Sanders launch his campaign in the week after basically another fellow Democratic socialist chased Amazon out of New York City, it put Bernie Sanders to the left of Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo. It's not easy to do that. In some ways, I feel like Bernie has been a victim of his own success. He has won this war without even firing a shot. In 2016, he basically said, this is what I'm going to be for. He ran unabashedly on it, and he had a lot of support. And I think if the Democrats hadn't rigged their primary, he might have actually been the nominee. Perhaps good for him that he wasn't, because then he had time to let these ideas percolate. Do you think there would be an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2020 or 2019 if there had not been a Bernie Sanders in 2016? No, it's a good point. Absolutely not. And also, the other thing you have is you have Democratic candidates like Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, both taking great pains this week to say that they are not socialists. They are capitalists, and they have to explain it. But you have to ask yourself, is it a distinction without a difference? If you are talking about free health care for all, free college for all, unabashedly bashing the financial institutions, and promising lots of things that are going to look like a socialist country, that is why the Democrats find themselves already in February of 2019 on the losing end of a debate with Donald Trump.
Are they, we're almost out of time, but I'm just interested, since you're steeped in the numbers, are they going to lose that debate? I mean, they'll lose it as far as I'm concerned, but is the public on the side of capitalism or socialism? Sincere question.
Well, I actually think that Karl Rove has talked about this for a while, and he's right. If younger people in America say that they more align with socialism, we should take them seriously. Just this week, Tucker, we found that most people in America could not pass a basic citizenship test that immigrants have to take in order to get a chance to live here in America. So we have a lot of making up to do, but I do think that the country is still a center-right country, but conservatives, capitalists, people who do not want socialism have to try to make a very good case for it, because Bernie Sanders has a grassroots organization across the country willing to send him $25 over and over and over again. That makes a big difference. They're not just going to big donors and billionaires to get funding, even though they do that too. They have support all across the country, and people should take that very seriously.
Yeah, they should take it. I couldn't agree more. There's a reason people feel that way. Dana Perino, it's great to see you, as always, and we're going to see you in just a minute.
Okay.
Well, the Democratic Party is changing very fast, as you know. We try to chronicle it on this show. They're for socialism now. They're also embracing reparations for slavery, something that people have talked about in the fringes. No big candidate has ever endorsed it. A bunch did just in the last week. That's next.
Again, it's back to the inequities. They're through look, America has a history of 200 years of slavery. People aren't starting out on the same base in terms of their ability to succeed. And so we have got to recognize that and give people a lift up.
So you are for some type of
Yes, I am.
reparation? Okay.
Yes, I am.
There used to be an eccentric opinion. Suddenly, lots of people seem to have it, not just Kamala Harris. Today, just today, Senator Elizabeth Warren, maybe under the influence of peyote, said that she also supports reparations. So did Julian Castro. Just 2 years ago, keep in mind, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were both asked about this, and both said they opposed it. 5 years from now, we'll be tearing down statues for taking that position, but that's where we are today. Author and columnist Mark Steyn has been following this and joins us tonight. Seems like things are moving kind of fast, Mark.
Yeah, they are. And this is disturbing if reparations is becoming a mainstream position. It's particularly absurd, I think, for Elizabeth Warren to be in favor of that. This is someone who, in a sense, has benefited from a fake appropriation of racial grievance. As you know, the business about her being 1024th Native American, presumably, and yet presenting herself as Harvard Law School's first woman of color. That's what happens when you actually get into this sort of neo-apartheid of racial classification. And I find it particularly absurd. I mean, when Kamala Harris says people are not starting from the same point, slavery was abolished a century and a half ago. Nobody alive today has a grandparent who was a slave. And in that sense, I think you reach a point where, you know, you need to move on. I mean, the reparations thing eventually, as the decades go by, becomes ridiculous. I'm Canadian. I think you guys should give us reparations, because if you hadn't had the revolution, we'd have the whole continent would now be Canada. And if you were going to steal our land from us and drive the loyalists out, Tucker, you could at least have divided the continent east-west so that we Canadians weren't holed up in the coal bit.
Which half would you take?
Yeah, well, exactly. I think I'd have the half without the Californian presidential candidates in it, I think that's right. On balance, or maybe the bit in the middle, and you guys could have the two coasts. But the point here is this is nothing real. This is nothing real to the lived experience of people of all kinds of identities today. And certainly not to Kamala. Kamala Harris has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. And I don't know whether it's the identity politics, as her father was suggesting earlier today. I don't know whether it's this whole identity politics obsession that means she has to feel she has to genuflect to this, because her own experience is in fact entirely apart from the African-American slave experience.
It's also bad, though. It's really divisive. Mark Steyn, great to see you. Thank you for that. Divisive. It is.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
See ya. Time now for final exam. Two contestants create chaos on set during their last match-off. Will face off again. Get ready for Dana Perino and Greg Gutfeld in this week's news quiz. See if you can beat them. We'll be right back. Blanchard is on assignment. So tonight we have a New York City special edition for you. Two long-standing bitter rivals of many decades. Dana Perino and Greg Gutfeld, co-hosts of The Five, join us tonight. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, we're glad to be here.
Wish I could say it.
Greg is so happy to be here.
Yes.
Bitter
right now
rivals
I'd be eating ribs, Tucker. I'd be eating ribs and drinking wine and watching a rerun of Friends.
We're going to see if that kind of preparation serves you well.
That he doesn't.
I mean, so I think if you were to ask our audience, who's done more prep work for this segment? Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so you know the rules. I'm going to run through them super quick.
Okay.
Hands on buzzers. I ask the questions. The first one to buzz in gets to answer. You have to wait until I finish asking the question before you answer it.
Like Alex Trebek.
Exactly. You can answer once I acknowledge by saying your name. Okay. Every correct answer gets you 1 point. If you lose a question, we detract a point. Ooh. So you could actually get into negative territory pretty fast. Best of 5 wins.
Best of 5.
Make sense?
Yes.
Best of the 5, right here.
Best of 5, the 5. All right, question 1. Here it is. If elected in November of 2020, Bernie Sanders would be the oldest president in American history. How old would he be on Inauguration Day?
You came in early.
77. You're right. I did
No,
cheat.
I'm unfortunately, I can't hear you. I can only hear our judges yelling in my ear. It goes to Greg.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Dana, obviously I'm rooting for you.
I would say 80, but I already won.
77.
Okay, so Greg gets to answer. You're saying 80, Greg?
No, I already won. I'm not answering. I'm taking the fifth. Taking the fifth.
No, you have to answer the question.
Talk to my lawyer. I already won.
The answer.
You said 80.
All right, 77.
77. All right, we're going to go to the tape. Is it 77?
He'll be 79.
Oh, no! You! That is so... No, we're not doing this anymore. She cheats. This happened last time.
So you thought you were benefiting from her premature buzz, but actually you are now in negative territory.
That is a total setup. This happened last time she was reading off the teleprompter. Or was that Judge Janine?
I think I'm pretty sure that was Judge Janine. I don't think anyone believes Dana Perino would do that.
All right. Well, she jumped
question
the gun.
2.
You know what it is? Your questions are too long, Tucker.
Okay, this is an even longer one. It's a multiple choice, so be sure you've heard all the options before answering. Here it is.
So mad.
2020 hopeful Kirsten Gillibrand of New York had a campaign event in Iowa at a bar this week. Her speech was interrupted when a woman pushed past her on a mission to find which condiment. Was it A, hot sauce? Was it B, ranch dressing? Or was it C, Dana Perino's famous queso? Dana Perino.
It is B, ranch dressing.
Is it B? It wasn't your famous queso. Is it B, ranch dressing? To the tape we go.
Base and the grassroots care about.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get some ranch.
Go ahead.
Just wanted some ranch. Just
Well,
like
look at
everybody.
that. Look at that. You are
That was so easy because no one's going to go for Dana's queso.
No one.
That looks
I
like a
don't know.
corpse.
Actually, that was my guess. You never know at a Gillibrand campaign event. All right, question 3. A Democratic congressman became a bit of a laughingstock in digital world yesterday on Twitter. This congressman bragged to his followers that he walked an entire extra block to get his coffee. This was an effort to boycott Trump Tower. Who was it? Greg
Swalwell. Swalwell.
Are you going to give that to him?
Yes.
Are you going to give
I'm
that
mocking his name.
I'm not sure I know what that means.
Swalwell.
Let's see if your answer matches our tape.
All right, Eric Swalwell, California Democrat.
He turned a trip to go to Starbucks into this political statement, tweeting this. It's snowing in New York. I need coffee. The closest cafe is inside Trump Tower. This is me walking to an alternative.
They're giving it to you, even though you sound like the parents in a Peanut cartoon.
That is
I was mocking his name.
They're trying to appease you.
That's good enough. No, I don't think they are. That is good enough. You are back. I think you're back to 0.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Story of my life.
All right, question 4. If you looked up at the night sky this week, if you didn't live in New York City, for example, you may have seen an interesting lunar spectacle. The winter moon appeared extra bright because it was thousands of miles closer to the Earth than it normally is. There's a name for this event, and the hint is it has something to do with winter weather. Okay, if you were to look outside your apartment.
I don't do that.
Okay.
I usually sit in a dark room and listen to death metal.
Wait, I knew. I saw the picture. It was tweeted.
Guess.
It was picture, right.
Guess.
Okay.
Dana.
It's not a harvest moon. Lunar moon.
She said harvest moon.
What do you? No. She said it's not a harvest moon. What is your answer?
I don't know. I said lunar moon, but it doesn't make any sense because
lunar moon. That would be redundant, but it might still be the answer. We'll find out.
Back to 0.
A super snow moon. TJ is rapt watching this. It's called super, TJ, because the moon is at its closest to Earth right now, and it's full. And February's full moon is known as a snow moon because many associated the month with heavy snowfall.
Yeah.
Okay, so the statisticians in our control room are saying, they just checked the books, this is the first ever 0-0 final question. So you're going into sudden death with no points on the board.
Sudden death. It just might be his. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So here's the final question. This is a multiple choice. You have to wait till I finish asking it. A statue of Abraham Lincoln in the state of California has become very popular online because of its unusual depiction of our 16th president. What is so strange about this particular Lincoln? Is it A, he's young and shirtless, B, he's holding a kitten, C, he's on rollerblades?
Okay.
You sound resigned.
I have no idea. I've not seen this statue or anything, but he was a big animal rights activist, actually, for his time. So I'm going to go with B, holding a kitten.
Was Abraham Lincoln holding a kitten in the statue in California? To the tape.
Sure, it's rollerblades. Come on.
Reminder that the Los